contentment today. We're just going to be content with the requisite of Zoom as it is. Here we are. Okay, looks like it is live. I am unmuted. I'm just going to test the share screen and then we'll begin. Okay, yes, it will allow me to do the share. All right. All right. All right. So glad to be together on this last day of our winter retreat at Basadi Vihara. There's a little bit of a sense of, oh, okay, tomorrow we officially transition back into the flow of normalcy with answering emails, etc., etc. And there's also a joy in that. I had my main retreat practice out at Cloud Mountain for 5 weeks. And so I've been kind of the support person for the last 3 weeks. And I do notice, oh, okay, there is a shift that happens. And can I be content and interactive and engaged in the same way? I wish I had my little, right at the end of retreat, I wrote something about, out in the regular world, in my regular world, which I know is different than the regular world of a person who's holding down a paid job, etc. But can I take these qualities that I've cultivated over the 5 weeks, and can I carry them appropriately without attaching, grabbing, but with a spaciousness and a usefulness and an integrity that makes it possible that it's not just day one out where I think I said it, the nurse at my medical appointment says, you look happy on the inside and the outside. Can we continue to carry that when we're seeing the news, when we're walking on the streets, when we're writing the emails, when we're doing all these things? Can we look at the requisites we've got and apply them continuously in a wholesome way? And we might touch on that today. I just wanted to mention it as, this transition time of going from seclusion and into the world. Because today we're going to talk a lot about kind of the monastic practice, but I think you'll find it quite applicable to what you're doing in your lives too. So let's begin. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sangham Namasami. So with veneration to the triple gem, let's look at some suttas. Okay, I am going to share. Looks like this window. Okay, so contentment and other qualities to cultivate by reflection and development. Last week I talked about maybe looking at contentment this week, and the place that monastics generally have every day this sense of, well, can I be contented with the requisites, the things that are being offered for shelter and to cover the body, keep it warm or cool, to shade it from the sun, medicinals, foods, the basic things that, if you're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that sustain having a human body and its continued living in enough of a supported way. And so that's the place we'll start with, on interacting with the basic requisites. and a role model that we can look to for that. And then we'll go into some other reflections that maybe help us with this practice of being content amidst what is available and what is arising. So the first sutta, both of these suttas today are pretty short, but again, very rich. We do the reflection pretty much daily. In monasteries, it's often chanted with the morning chanting. We do that here most of the time. We sometimes switch up our morning chant, but this almost appears every day that we do that. So this is in the Samyutta Nikaya. It's 16.1, and for this one I'm using the translation by Bhante Bodhi. Generally we hear it as Bhikkhu Bodhi, but Bhikkhu is just kind of the category of ordination. Bhante is a little more respectful, reverential to the amazing gift that Bhante Bodhi has provided us to have a translation of the major suttas. So here we are. Samyutta Nikaya 16.1. At Savatthi, bhikkhus, this Kassapa is content with any kind of robe, and he speaks in praise of contentment with any kind of robe. He does not engage in a wrong search, in what is improper for the sake of a robe. If he does not get a robe, he's not agitated. And if he gets one, he uses it without being tied to it. I mean, that's not saying that it's not tied on properly, it's that he's not attached to it. Uninfatuated with it, not blindly absorbed in it, seeing the danger in it, understanding the escape. So Kassapa here is referring to Mahakassapa, is how we usually hear the great Kassapa. And he was quite a renunciant. He was very much known for not only his enlightenment and wisdom, but also that he wasn't seeking after resources or requisites. He very much was, the food that comes to me is the food that comes to me, the robes that are here, the robes that are there, and not getting attached to what he had. And he was quite an exemplar for this. And later in the sutta it'll say, or others, but we're using, in this case, it's Kassapa who's the example. And I did leave in the words bhikkhus or mendicants when I use Bhante Sujato's translation, because we are very much in these suttas talking to the monastics. And yet it's incredibly applicable to lay life, where you're trying to pare down, you're trying to simplify, you're trying to ask the question, what is it that I really need to be functional and sustained, but not looking for something that's, I don't need the high fashion, unless that's your profession, then maybe you do. But what is the right thing for what I'm engaging in the world? And is there any way, I think we can also ask, that I can simplify the way that I'm engaging in the world? So the robe that I have on right now, I sprung another hole in it. There'll be another patch on it tomorrow. That's the nature of robes. Another reflection we have is that the robe, before I put it on the body, it's clean, it's nice, it's a good thing to look at and pleasant. But then I put it on this body, and it's not just this body, any body, any human body, and sweat happens. The skin flakes off. Lunch might get spilled. It becomes something that's unpleasant. So if I can look at that robe as being both something I'm very grateful for, very grateful to have something that covers the body, that's maintainable, that's simple. I don't know how many of you go into your closet and say, what will I wear today? I don't have that problem. It's just a whole part of the mind is not looking at, I've told the story before, two monastics who were going to the United Nations, and they were with a large group of people, and the lay people had brought their finest and their jewelry, and the monastics got up in their hotel room, and one of them said to the other, "Well, we're going to the United Nations. What shall we wear today?" And the other said, robes. So, we don't have to worry about all of the fineries. And then in the sutta, it's talking about also not getting agitated or with the lack. It's like, okay, so there's a hole in the robe. Maybe I have something to patch it with, or maybe I have to take a piece off of the lining to patch it with. Is the body covered? Okay, good enough, good enough. And not to be infatuated with. I've definitely felt this. I'm not immune. I have a history as a child of it's itchy. The fabric's itchy. And so I put on a new robe and I'm like, oh, phew, this one's not itchy, or that kind of thing. Because that's what we do. That is how we often engage. So can I be uninfatuated with it and not absorbed with it? Can I see the danger of that attachment? There's a story in the suttas about a monastic who had a new set of robes and just was so delighted by the robes, and then he died. And not because of the robes, just he died. And typically when a monastic dies, then the robes are distributed to other monastics who may need a robe, which is, we call it pampsakula, the robes from the dead. And it's an honor to receive that robe. And the Buddha could tell, because of the infatuation of that bhikkhu, that he was attached to those robes, so attached that his rebirth was as I think it was like a louse, a lice, who was reborn in the folds of the robe. And so his karma, that attachment, had him actually reborn with those so precious robes. So seeing the danger in that. And so the Buddha said to the monastics, don't distribute those robes for, I don't remember if it was however many days. Don't distribute the robes until that time. And so the lifespan of the louse ended, and he then was able to, in the next rebirth, see clearly and went to one of the heavens to continue his practice. But he felt like the Buddha knew that if he agitated that monk further in his attachment, then he may not have a great destination on the next one. You can take that as a fanciful story, but it's kind of like our fables in the West, or every cultures, the stories of our cultures across the world that tell you a little bit about, this could be your destination if you don't see the danger in the attachment to your things. I remember, I'm not sure if I was an anagarika or an aspirant, aspiring to go into monastic life. And I was out at the Hermitage in California, and a group had come and they were gathering up all of their things and putting them into the back of the car to depart. And I realized that my backpack was missing, which contained my laptop, and which had all my correspondence and my sutta studies and everything on it. Oh, and my notebook that I had written out my sutta notes. That one was even harder. It was like, my sutta notes are gone. But there was the laptop of like, yeah, but that's how I communicate for the monastery. That's how I'm not going to be able to get online. I'm not. And I started walking back to my kuti up the mountain. Halfway up, I was like, I don't have a laptop. Isn't that wonderful? You know, I'm not, I don't have to be engaged in that way so much. I'll have to make an extra effort, put a particular time on it, go down, use the communal laptop. And there was an understanding of the escape of that attachment. It's like, oh, not having that, there's some freedom. I delighted in not having my laptop for 5 weeks of retreat. Can I, when I come back and pick it up again, can I be engaged in a way that's unagitated? So that's there's a lot. We're one paragraph into the sutta. You can see how rich this kind of practice is, to just explore, what do I need? What do I really actually need? And if I get it, can I be content with what I have received and not overly attached? If I don't get it, so we'll get to medicines, there's some health care that I wish there was easier access to health care, not just for me, but for everyone. And yet, can I be content? Can I not be rude when I go to the provider? I might say, it's been 6 months to be able to get in to see you. But rather than continuing the conversation as, I've been in pain that whole time and da 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 da, or whatever, whatever the scenario is, can I say, wow, you must see a lot of people. You must really, be providing a lot to so many people. I'm so glad I was able to get into you. So how do we frame it? Can we be content with what requisites are available to us? Now, that doesn't mean I don't make phone calls and, and try to advocate for myself or for others. It's how do I go about it? Can I see the danger? Can I not be blindly absorbed? Can I understand the escape? Is that making sense? Yeah, okay, head nods. Okay, so you can kind of guess what the rest of the sutta is, since there are 4 requisites, and it's abbreviated in the next paragraph. Bhikkhus, this Kassapa is content with any kind of alms food, with any kind of lodging, with any kind of medicinal requisites. And if he gets them, he uses them without being tied to them, uninfatuated with them, not blindly absorbed in them, seeing the danger in them, understanding the escape. I'm not saying this is an easy practice. This is an ongoing, continual practice because we have a nature, just a in-wired nature for our well-being, pursuit of that, and then there's also the conditioning of society. So this is not an easy practice, and it's really, really fruitful. I probably told the story before where a lot of times I would go on alms round in the early days and have this anxiety, just because of my history, this food anxiety. Are we going to get enough? Are we going to get something that's actually useful? Are we, and so I'm standing there, and most of my practice was trying to be with the anxiety and trying to come into right relationship, understanding that this is a connection and interdependence. And then there was one day that we went out and we really weren't getting anything. I think we ended up with 2 plums and a something amongst 3 people, 3 monastics. And yet I was not focused on the emptiness of my bowl. I was doing a metta practice, and it's like everyone who walked by that day, didn't matter that they weren't approaching us with food. It was this sense of well-being and well-wishing for them, this interdependence with them. And I just realized the different quality of my mind to be content with, well, maybe we share a couple plums today. And how that shift can come about. When I was on retreat, there was one day where nobody noticed the monastic was standing with the bowl, and so there was no offering. And I was just about to depart because we actually also have a rule about not standing around while lay people are eating if, looking for food, So you can initially stand, and then if you're not offered, you go away. And I realized just such the difference in the practice over a decade to be content to stand there and say, all right, there may not be breakfast today. And that's not a problem. It's just like, okay. And, as I was just about to go, somebody said, were you offered anything? How do I do that? And it only happened the once. And when the people who run the place came up, they apologized. I said, it's not a problem. Sometimes the best nourishment is not getting it and seeing what's the quality. How am I attached or not attached? Am I content? Is it easy enough for me to say, okay, it's like this now, and I can be okay with it. So thank you for not offering me breakfast today. So it's a very big shift, and it does take a lot of examination to get to that. And I'm not promising that I'll always be that way. Okay. Therefore, bhikkhus, you should train yourself thus. We will be content with any kind of robe, and we will speak in praise of contentment with any kind of robe. And we will not engage in a wrong search in what is improper. So, not gonna, try to come up with unwholesome means of acquiring something for the sake of the robe. If we do not get a robe, we will not be agitated, and if we get one, we will use it without being tied to it, uninfatuated with it, not blindly absorbed in it, seeing the danger in it, understanding the escape. We will be content with any kind of alms food, with any kind of lodging, with any kind of medicinal requisites. And if we get them, we will use them without being tied to them, uninfatuated with them, not blindly absorbed in them, seeing the danger in them, understanding the escape. Thus should you train yourselves. Bhikkhus, I will exhort you by the example of Kassapa, or one who is similar to Kassapa. Being exhorted, you should practice accordingly. Sadhu. So this word, the most common word in Pali for contentment is santuta, or santuti. It's the declension you'll mostly see. And it's this, I'm satisfied, I'm content, I'm happy. Pleased together is the literal. With this, I'm in a state of warm-heartedness, a sense that this is good. And so can I be, this is good, not in the sense of what's going on in my household or my neighborhood or my city or my country or world, but can I be together with it, satisfied, unagitated in just being here and now. So with whatsoever, any kind of robe, lodging, life, can I be okay with this as it is now? And that does not mean that we don't strive to make wholesome changes. It does mean that we, in the process, stay relaxed and open. We stay settled. We stay warm-hearted. There's a kindness in our eyes as we look on whatever it is that we're engaged with. So Ayasuvijana and I are in a lovely two-bedroom apartment. It has just, the Devas were very helpful and kind in helping us just land an ideal starting place. So we look out on this little patch of forest. Ayasuvijana was out there silently walking this morning. And it's easy to be content with this view, this situation. And we are looking for expanding the monastery, finding a place that the Pasati Support Foundation would own, so that we can grow the community, so we can have a place for people to come and gather. So it's not that we're not doing those other things. And so we've started the process of seeing if there's interest and put out a matching fund for the during the winter retreat. So the board put out that announcement that there was this matching fund, and the treasurer, keeps us posted. And we met the matching fund for during the retreat, that there is an interest. There's another fund that's like matched against how many people, so we might not meet that one. Can we be content and rejoice in the generosity, and also content in the place that we're in, and content with however long it takes for the process of finding or not finding another place? And it is so sweet to be with Ayasuvijana in this place of, wherever we are, we practice. If we have aspirations of creating a space for more people, wonderful. And that doesn't discount where we are right now. Right now, Ayasuvijana's in the last day of retreat. I'm on Zoom with you. It's beautiful. It's something which I don't attach to it. Zoom might go out, my screen share won't work. And then it's like this now. And I don't know if you can, I just, as I talk about it, there's this happiness and warmth and willingness for whatever it is that shows up. So that's what we're looking at, whether you're offered a meal or not, whether the funds come in or they don't, whether the medical care is available or it's not. It's just, there's a hole in the robe, there isn't. I'm sure everybody has, gotten holes in their clothing at some point. So you understand, it ripped. Can it be okay? You still get the needle and thread out and sew it up. But in the process, there's a contentment with it. Kind of rambling a little bit, but it's kind of fun, so I hope that's okay. There's a little fable of a bhikkhuni who lived in a cave and was constantly repairing her robes because there was a mouse that was gnawing on them. So every morning she'd get up and patch her robes again. And so when she was in town, someone says, "Is there anything that would be useful?" And she says, "A cat. A cat would be useful." And so this cat went back to the cave with her and took care of the mouse, but scaring the mice away. And so the mice went to live in another cave, and now she has to feed the cat, and so the cat needs milk, so she has to carry milk back. And so somebody says, "What would be useful?" "Well, a cow would be useful." "Well, then somebody to milk the cow would be useful." "Well, a pen and a little house for the person who takes," on and on and on and on. And then one day she just went, "Oh my gosh, this whole thing that we're building up, it was so much better when I just simply patched my robes." And so seeing, and it doesn't mean you don't build things that are appropriate, but seeing how that snowball effect happens in our life as we go from living with parents, sharing a place, spending some time living in your car, and then you get your own apartment. Maybe you end up with a house. It has more rooms in it, more to clean. All of this. There's another story where in the canon, the Pali Canon, where the bhikkhu is heard to be exclaiming, "What bliss! What bliss! What bliss!" And so they take him to the Buddha because they think that he's reflecting back on when he had so much property and he had, all of these people to help protect him. And so the Buddha questioned him and he says, "Yes, I was saying, what bliss, what bliss. I get the ability to just sit at the root of the tree. When I was a noble prince or whatever it was, merchant, whatever he was, I had to have guards to protect my things, and I was always in fear of them being taken. And oh, what bliss that I don't have all of those burdens anymore." So this is where we look at the danger and escape. Okay, there is another wonderful sutta, but before we go there, are there any questions or comments about this sense of contentment with, you know, whether we have anything, is it enough? Anything that arises for anyone? Okay, it's a pretty big topic, so some other week, if something has come up as you've thought about it over the week, we can talk about it in our after party after it's off the Zoom. So spend some time reflecting on this enoughness, and the qualities of the mind when you have it and even when you don't. Okay, so we're going to do this second sutta. Again, it's kind of really geared towards the monastic, but I did the fuller version of 10 reflections when I was going from Anagarika to novice, and I recited them at my going forth. And we had them printed in the program, and several people said, I'm posting this on my refrigerator because I think it would be really beneficial for helping me to reflect on, you know, how I'm living in the world too. So again, was spoken to the monastics, but it is widely applicable. Anguttara Nikaya 10:101, and this is Bhante Sujata's translation. Mendicants, when these three perceptions for ascetics are developed and cultivated, they fulfill 7 things. What 3? I have secured freedom from class. So this is class or caste or social position. My livelihood is tied up with others. There's an interdependence. I can't do this on my own. My behavior should be different from how it was before I took on robes or took up this practice of renunciation and cultivation. When these 3 perceptions for ascetics are developed and cultivated, they fulfill 7 things. What 7? Their deeds and behavior are always consistent with the precepts. So really focusing on the non-harm, the truthfulness, the integrity, the basic, not going after things that are intoxicating or deviating me from the path, that make me careless. They're content. Now, we've talked about that a bit. Kind-hearted and humble. They want to train, so they want to cultivate these good qualities and to understand and come to freedom. And they use the necessities of life after reflecting on their purpose, which is what the previous sutta was about. And they're energetic. When these 3 perceptions for ascetics are developed and cultivated, they fulfill these 7 things. And we'll go over both those lists again, so that's one read through. This word, perceptions for ascetics, it's samana sanya. And I think it's interesting in this sutta that it's being framed as how the monastic or the renunciant or the practitioner is thinking about and perceiving and interacting, relating with. But it's also samana sanya would be sanya can be the sight of, the perception of seeing. So seeing a monastic. So in this sutta, it's directed at the monastic and how are they seeing. But this word is also used for people who are seeing the monastic. Like the other day, I was coming out of a medical appointment, and I was contemplating whether I would walk or wait for the bus. Walk to the next bus. Just the timing. I have to check the timing. Can I walk and get to the next bus stop or not? But a man came up pushing a baby carriage and asked if I was a monk. Yes. And so then he started talking about his daughter who was in the appointment and how they'd been watching the monks online who had been doing the peace walk, and just the sight of a samana, a renunciant, was bringing up something in him. And when his daughter came out, I introduced us, and he said to her, see, it's possible. He was telling her, you can be unagitated. You can find a peaceful way of being. Look, and the universe gives us these examples when we need them. And she's like, yes, I appreciate that. And it's, just the sight of someone who's doing it differently. So I think that's a real gift, and it's a real having to remind myself as one who's in the robes that how I behave matters. So we'll get to that. So it's both the perception of the monastic and those who are perceiving the monastic, that this word appears in the suttas in both those ways. So, yeah, and the root of the word in there, samana, is to be calm. It says be tired as well. So, often words will have that. We're looking at the calm and the striving. So the practice, but this sense of settled, stable, steady, while we're in the world and interacting with it. And then Sanya, we've done whole sutta sections, for weeks on perception. So I think Ayasuvijana did a 2-week series on it a couple weeks ago, before she was in retreat. So this whole sense of how are we regarding and recognizing things, and what is our awareness of it? So knowing together. Okay, and what are those perceptions? There are 3 here in this. There's another sutta, as I mentioned, the Dasa Dhamma. These are the first 3 of the 10 reflections. So we're just looking at the first 3. And Bhante Sujato translates them as, I have secured freedom from class, my livelihood's tied up with others, and my behavior should be different. Those of you who have more experience with the Ajahn Chah forest, I've got those translations a little bit further down, and you'll probably recognize them. So this first one, the Vevaniyam Hiyajupakato, that is the change of appearance, so putting on the robes, but it's also a change of social order, a change of state. And the word itself, vivana, is to remove the color from. So it really was referring to the caste system at the time of the Buddha. But we really haven't gotten away from the caste system in our modern world. It's still very present in so many of our interactions. So when we step out of society, is really what we're talking about. When we step out of the norms of society, can we step out of the attachments of, this is what my privilege is based on skin color, education, health, etc., 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 etc. And can I come into an understanding of conditionality as a whole? Can I step away from any privilege I had as a layperson? For me, a lot of that was my brain power. A lot of that was what I could invent, and that dynamic of being top in my field type of thing. Can I step away from that? For others, your fashion sense, whatever it is. Can you step away from what identities you had and open up and just be able to renounce and be okay with whatever it is that we're able to do outside of that system? And it's a way that we can show to the world it can be different. We can relate in a very, very different way. We don't have to categorize people in the ways that we are conditioned to do. And can we, shave off I have had people say, not so much recently, but younger, oh, you're so pretty or handsome, or, I've had all various words, and others have gotten it much more than me. Why would you shave off your hair? Why? you know, and it's a symbol of stepping away from, and I had actually started buzzing my hair before monastic life. I'd had it down long to my hips, and gosh, that takes a lot of time to manage it and style it and all of that. Just untangle it. Uh, I don't have any tangling problems anymore. To step outside of that as a view of what makes you seen and appreciated in the world. It's a wonderful practice. The way that it is translated in the Bayagiri or Amaravati chanting book is, I am no longer living according to worldly aims and values. So that's getting to the crux of, I like the translation even though it's way not literal. The freedom from not being attached to class is very literal. But not living according to the worldly aims and values. I saw some ads the other day for makeup, and I just reflected on, I only did that for a little period in my life, high school, college, a little bit there. I tried it out, and even the amount spent just in that short period, why? For me, why? Why do I need these signs of this paint? I understand it can also be an expression for oneself, but for me, I was just following what I was supposed to do, and it it didn't feel like a value that I wanted to hold. So this gives us the suggestion to question that and have a sense of perception about what is appropriate. I'm not living according to worldly aims and values. The second one, my livelihood is tied up with others. Parapatibada me jivika. Jivika is the life, so my life is dependent on others, bound and supported by others. And it's literally binding, So like the day that there was nobody who tied to me to put something in my bowl. Okay? It helps me really see the interdependence, and it's true for all of us, whether you got an alms bowl or not. What you eat, even if you have a garden and you're able to go out and, or you're a forager in the forest, in our world, there still is this interconnection with other people, with other beings, with the plants themselves. So really seeing that no one does this alone. This sustaining the body. In some ways, we have to practice alone, but the situation and the support. You didn't just have a Star Trek. What was that device they had that would replicate your food? And we don't have that. We don't. And the way that it's translated most commonly is, my very life is sustained by the gifts of others. And that I think is a beautiful way to look at it, is, it is the actions and offerings of others that make it possible to sustain this life. If there weren't the doctor to go to with all of their education, I wouldn't get that health care. If just the gifts of conversation, the gifts of support, the gifts of, I thank the bus driver quite frequently, especially in Olympia where the buses are free. It's like, I really appreciate having this transportation. And you can start to really see how our lives are supported by each other. Third one is, my behavior should be different. And this is, I'll just go directly to the other translation. I should strive to abandon my former habits. We're talking about, the conduct that wasn't so becoming before we took on the precepts, or is still in the process of development, whatever those habits might have been, that we can look at them and it's literally suitable. What is suitable here? So as we take on this practice of renunciation, as we take on the practice of developing the Brahma Viharas, a warm heart, as we take on the practice of putting down anger, putting down this craving, and putting down this delusion, what is a suitable behavior here? So that's another way I look at it, is this suitable? When I watch a Dhamma something through Facebook and then I stay on Facebook and keep scrolling, is that suitable? No, not. And I can look at that and say, okay, that's a behavior that maybe isn't appropriate for me to cultivate. So can I abandon that habit of scrolling? And okay, so why? So what is the benefit of this? The sutta says there are 7. In this sutta, there's other lists that have more and less numbers. What's 7? Their deeds and behavior are always consistent with the precepts. They're content, kind-hearted, and humble. They want to train. They use the necessities of life after reflecting on their purpose, and they're energetic. So these are both further cultivations and results. So it comes to be that our virtue, our sila, our ethical conduct becomes consistent with it when we're looking at, am I stepping outside the social norms? Am I behaving in a different way? Do I see the interdependence? When I look at that, then I start to see that I can be steady in that ethics, and that I can be in the Dhammapada. Here's one that's talking about the monastic's reflection. This isn't really an ochre color, but it's in that same family of color. One who's purged all their stains, steady in ethics, possessed of self-control and truth, they are truly worthy of the ochre robe. Or we could say they are truly worthy to say, I'm a practitioner. So we can begin to be really consistent in and aligned with the precepts, the ethical qualities of non-harm, of not lying, stealing, etc. They're content. The Pali word is actually literally not greedy. So the Dhammapada, let us live so very happily content amongst greedy humans, let us live content. Now, can we really be a symbol and a sign of doing things differently, not grasping after, not, in the early days, I also remember on alms round walking by the shop windows, and they'd have the outfits, and I was a hat collector before, so I'd see a cute hat or a stylish hat, or it'd catch my eye. And it's like, oh, I would have bought that before. I would have gone in there and tried that on. I would have, and over time, it's like that just fell away. I can't imagine having to maintain a hat collection now. But it was a part of my identity, actually, at that time. So not seeking after. Kind-hearted, the Pali translates literally as without ill will. Oh, so happily we live non-hostile amongst the hostile. Amidst hostile people, we live without hostility. And I think this is a really important thing that we're seeing in some of our walks and movements and things, where the response to hostility is not coming back with hostility, but it's showing that that's why, the piece, my brain just completely lost the common phrase, at least in the United States. It stemmed from India. the Gandhi's protests, the Martin Luther Jr.'s protests, that word that's my brain is not pulling up. Nonviolent, these peaceful ways of showing up. And that it can have a much more lasting and shifting thing than the temporary overpowering that we do if we are meeting hostility with hostility. And even if you are strong in making a response, can it be done with a warm and loving heart? That you're doing this for well-being and doing no harm to your own heart as you make your responses. So if you're speaking up to your boss or your neighbor or whatever for something that's socially not appropriate, can you do it with a real sense of warmth and goodness in your heart for their benefit as well as your own or the people that you're standing up for? And I think that ties into the next one, humble, which is literally without arrogance. So we're not putting ourselves over something. I'm a good Buddhist, I wear this, that is not, putting into that type of social position is not a forward leading thing. It doesn't cultivate a heart that's aimed at freedom. And they desire the training, they want to train. They're willing to go into the discomfort of seeing what is the danger, what is the escape when I interact with social settings and things in those ways. Which is the next one. They use the necessities of life after reflecting on their purpose. What is the use of this? I know they have those decluttering things and you hold up the object and you say, oh, is this actually useful? Is it beautiful? Is it, I don't remember what the phrases are, but is it something I just accumulated? Maybe I don't need to continue to have that around or purchase another one. And they're energetic. So there's a persistence. This is not if anyone's done decluttering, you don't do it once because the whole behavior system has to shift before the place stays in a state of uncluttered. So those are the 7 that come up from the working with these 3, not being tied up, adjusting our behavior, and not moving away from the worldly aims and values. And so I thought I'd get down into some of that nitty-gritty practice today. I've been talking about happiness for the last couple weeks, and I assure you that this practice too is a very, very happy one. It leads to a kind of peace that is very different than the peace of having something. It's being in right relationship with something when you do have it, and in right relationship when you don't. So with that, I'll stop the screen share and we can open it up for whatever is emerging. Too hardcore, or is it applicable for you?
Thank you, Aya. It's just always really nice to be reminded that.
Oh, wait, I think my sound is off.
Oh,
Kat, if you were speaking, could you start again?
Can you hear me now?
I can, thank you.
Okay.
If anyone has spoken throughout, I apologize.
No, thank you, Aya, for the teachings. It's just always good to be reminded that, that we can live simpler and that we can learn to be with whatever feelings are there that are going to test us a little bit in how we interact with the world, because our requisites are largely met in a very very easily, I think, for most of us anyway in this country. And I think a lot of us live well beyond what we need. And unfortunately, I think in nations with a lot of money, and a lot of power, we tend to do that. And that means that maybe people who could use those things in other places do without. So it's just and like you said, it's a sense of freedom. So
Yeah.
I just got back from retreat too, and it's the amount of freedom there is just from not having to check my email and not getting sucked into Substack and all sorts of stuff. And it's always a little tricky coming back, because I'm always finding like that I want a better balance. And that's not always an easy thing to find. So yeah, so thank you. I appreciate the teachings today.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are a lot of places in the world where, you know, many, a large percent of the population is getting at least the basics met. But even right here in Olympia, and I'm out walking around and meeting people on the street, there's not enough housing. There simply is not enough housing that's available. I've met many people who even have the housing vouchers to help them pay for it, and there aren't places available. And the way that I see people support and also take from each other, out in those environments, it's quite interesting to see the human nature at the different levels. When I'm in the healthcare places to talk with people who are very, very grateful to have any healthcare at all, and you know what they're scrounging for to be able to provide their child with um, you know, the inhaler or the basic thing that they need to keep breathing. Um, it and many of us aren't that far away from that level of subsistence. So can we not just think that this this wonderful two-bedroom apartment is here and it'll be here forever? No, no, it's not like that. And so can I be so grateful for it being here and not attached to it being here, and just kind of this willingness. It's like, oh, if there isn't support, then there's always the root of the tree, and maybe my life will be shorter, and can that be okay? Can I not give up my practice? And this radical level of acceptance with living with what is. And then, as Kat, you're bringing up, if the having so many resources, am I holding on to it so strongly, and others don't have enough? You know, when I'm banking it for a rainy day. I'm not opposed to this, but I'm also saying, look at it. Can you also help sustain others? Because the opposite side of I'm sustained by the gifts of others is I can help others be sustained. Two very short suttas with so much in them. Wow. Can we have another comment? And then oh, Rachel, please.
I just have we live very simply where we are on our homestead. Like we don't have electricity and running water. And for a few years, we had to do laundry by hand we have three kids. And when we were able to get a washing machine, now the responsibility of doing the laundry is like it's a joy. I'm able to do it here now, and it's so much easier. So I'm walking a path of like trying to meet the necessities, but at the same time, it's a lot of labor, right? So it's like, what could help? What would actually be more burdensome? Yeah. So I really like the teaching today. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. That's beautiful, and it is really wonderful to look at. I think you investigate what is the purpose of a washing machine? What benefits does it give me, and are they in balance so that it, it's supporting my I've lived out off grid and done plunger in a bucket style of washing clothing, and there is a joy. Yeah, oh yeah. And I was in a redwood forest, so we didn't get a lot of sun, so wring it out, and then you have to hang it up inside and light a fire so that it dries, so it doesn't mold before it's dry. It's a thing. And to then be able to say, and this is okay. Like the bhikkhuni said, I don't have a cat. I'm going to just patch my ropes. And then also to have the trade-off and say, and with a washing machine, it frees me up for this and this. My body it's a lot to do, especially larger robes or bedding or things. Whew, do that for a whole household, it's a lot. And so we look at the balance and we say, this item of convenience and support nourishes me, and I'm in right relationship with it. And if it goes away, I know how to do this too. So that you can have it without this attachment. Appreciation without attachment. Oh. It's such a wonderful topic. I don't know what Subhajana will bring us next week. I'm sure that'll be wonderful too. So we are at the top of the hour, so I will do the respects to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha and stop the recording and then open it up if others want to ask questions or comments about this or any other topic that's up for you right now. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sangha Sangham Namami